So, while our guests are joining us and taking their seat here on the red coach or white chair, as they prefer, I'll do the same on the other side because I like this side best. Okay, let me introduce this for a second and then we'll start talking. This is going to be a conversation. So I'm going to interview our guests. I'm going to talk with them, ask them questions, and let you ask them questions if you want, and I hope you will. We're going to talk about quantified self. You know, knowledge is power. The more you know, the more you can do, the more you are in control of something you care of. And this is real and this is true also for your life. So the question is, how much do we know about ourselves, our lives? How much can we measure our life? And how much can we be in control of our life? And on the other side, who's measuring ourselves? Who's following us, collecting data about ourselves? And with this, what are they doing with this data? And can they give this data back to us? There are many questions we can ask about this this topic, which I think is very important, and we are going to discuss it in the next, I think 40 minutes, vero, Sergio? 40 minutes. So we have 40 minutes to talk about this. I'll try to let our guests explain all the things we need during the next 30, and then we will have, if you want, 10 minutes to talk about this and to hear from your questions and try to give you the answers you and us, you and we need. So,
Yes.
Are you joking? Okay. Adriana, would you mind to start if I start with you?
So I will,
okay. I would like to start with you and let you set the context of what we are saying, or we're going to talk about. So, in a very simple way, on the simplest we can, what is quantified self, and why do we need to know about it?
It really is what it says on the tin. It's a way of quantifying some aspect of your life, which you can do through measurement, pen and paper. You can do that through having a sensor, like Fitbit, or you can do it through a browser extension. Technology, the point about quantified self is that technology made it more accessible to people who are not merely obsessive and actually go into trouble of taking pen and paper and recording everything. And from then, a lot of other aspects of quantified self has emerged. But the simplest definition is ability to, using technology or other means to measure aspect of your life and quantify it.
And why is it important for us? You said a lot of things. It's a huge topic. We were talking about this yesterday when we decided what to talk about during the panel. And it's what is the first? What would be the first reason why we should measure ourselves?
I think it depends. Excuse me. I run QS meetups in London. And one of the interesting things is that there is no consistent pattern of what the people are, why they do it. The motivations are very different. And the way they go about it is very different. And what they learn about it has some similarities, but also is very individual. So there are the several fronts on which QS is evolving. And it started with the geeks. The people who wanted to understand themselves better.
As usual.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And because they could, they had the know-how. They were obsessive enough, they had access to technology, and they knew how to tweak that technology for their purposes. Talking about Fitbit, that's taking it to the next stage. That is not a geeky tool, that's something that anyone can use. And I think the longer-term perspective of QS is about behavior change, about understanding yourself, which you touched on. And also, I think we know very little about behavioral psychology when it comes to individuals driving that. We know a lot about how to influence people, or we try to. We know a lot about a collective and collectives and organizations trying to influence individuals within it, but we do not really have much experience in managing ourselves. It's considered self-centered and selfish and obsessive, and a lot of mainstream media do take that point, and I get tired with the coverage where, oh, aren't these people quirky, weird, self-obsessive? And I tend to remind them, have you filled in an expense form any day, ever? Yes, well, that's quantifying your spending, isn't it? Have you measured your blood sugar? Have you been on a diet and made a nutrition diary? Well, that's quantifying self. But now it's moving to a level, thanks to technology, which is far more interesting because it empowers the individual to use that data in ways that were previously not possible. And I think there's a long way to go, but we can talk about that.
Of course. And before going on, I would like to ask to the public if there is someone right now who's measuring himself with this new technology, and it is not important what kind of technology. C'è qualcuno di voi che misura se stesso, che usa misurare costantemente se stesso con una qualche tecnologia? Slowly rising are the hands.
Bugiardi.
Okay. Just to have a context. Okay. And I'll pass to Luca to ask him, after your keynote, you can be an example. Now you've been measuring yourself in many ways for about 2 years, and you explained with which kind of tools and why did you choose those tools and how do they work. But as an experience, I want to know, did this measuring change you, and how and why?
I think, I did some change. Reading Leo Babauta and some other book about minimalism, you realize that usually to change something in your daily habits, you need, someone said 21 days, someone said 66 days, but you need some time to change. And probably you should start changing just one thing at a time, and not to have many changes at the same time, because probably you will fail. So if you decide to change starting with one thing, and I also have another book suggestion, that is a book called One Thing, that is on sale since a few weeks. It's a very nice book. You can improve yourself. That is, quit smoking, eat less, being more focused, being more present with people around you. When you realize that you want and you can change something with this kind of tools, you can do it quite easily. It's a principle of psychology, but if you take a journal of what you do, probably you are more aware of what you did and you can change it. So I said that I changed my daily schedule in the morning going for a walk. And also something funny that I want to share is, Italian people following me, they know that I travel a lot around Italy, especially by train. So waiting on the platform for a slow speed train, most of the time delayed, I started to work on the platform. And I was the only one doing that, even in the morning when everyone is not tired. So that means that you have many opportunities to work during the day, even if you are very busy working. So it's something that when you realize that you can do it.
It's the self-awareness.
Exactly.
Aspect. Yeah,
it's quite easy. And also, it's something related to the surfing activity, because if you have a tool that you realize that you spend like 1 hour on Facebook and like 10 minutes reading a book, because also you can measure how much time you read, like Kobo has a very nice feature, but I wonder why Kindle has not yet, but is reading live, reading statistics. So I can say you that with my Kobo during last month, I read for 29 hours. So it means that I read 1 hour a day. And I can compare it with how many hours I've been on Facebook or on Twitter. So if reading is more important than just updating Facebook, now I realize if I care more about reading or care more about social networking. Before I couldn't tell.
Adriana, you want to add something?
Yeah, I think there is an elephant in the room nobody wants to talk about or is talking about, which is, yes, of course, your habits can change based on the data that you see, but how long can you sustain it? Is it sustainable? I don't think US has been around long enough to know. I don't know. For me, using something like Fitbit, first 2 weeks after you click everything, it's like, oh yes, I walked that much, it's great. And then after 3 weeks, it's like, well, what does it actually mean? After 3 months, I can't be bothered. And that's just me. That's, you know, there are many people who are wearing Fitbit now after a few years, so obviously it works for them. For me, the question was, okay, so I see a big spike on the Fitbit chart. What does it mean? I have to go to my Google Calendar to find out what I was doing that day. If I'm lucky, it's there. And it's not self, it's not quantified self. It's quantified Fitbit, it's quantified calendar, it's quantified this. It is no self that is getting quantified. So, for me, the question is, can I get the data truly open? Can I correlate it? Can I own it? Can I interrogate it? To me, data analysis means ability to ask questions of your data on your terms, in your own way. Then it becomes interesting. Because I want to know, somebody asked me, can mood tracking make you happy? And I said, of course not. But it may make you less unhappy. Because you could see why you're feeling down every Wednesday afternoon. It could be because you just had a meeting with your boss every Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday lunch. Or you ate something that has impact on your blood sugar level and you feel down. Or it could be anything, it could be location. How are you going to find out if you do not have all that information? And you could. We have all these wonderful technologies. What we do not have is the capability to use that under our own control and on our terms. So that, to me, is the big elephant that everybody is talking about, but and then that would answer the longer and more interesting question, longer-term question is, how can we sustain that change? How can we truly be in control of our habits?
Yeah, that's exactly the point. That's why I was waiting to finish, because I was going to ask him, these tools are telling you something about your habits, but are they telling who you are and what you really need? Do you have this feeling? Have you been thinking about this? Do this measurement you do since 2 years, are they telling something about you more than something of what you do? It's more philosophical than technology answer.
I would say that they say something about who I am, comparing with what's my view of myself and of who I would like to be. So I can see the gap between the real world, the real Luca, and the Luca that I have in my mind, or I would like to be in the future. So it could help, but I agree with Adriana. But the question now is, if you start to use them, you would like to match them, to compare data and to make some correlation with them. And at the moment, it's not so easy to do that. But I think it's just the avant-garde of the quantified self movement, because as we can see today, most of the people here, they didn't start to track themselves in any way. So I think first you should have a motivation to start tracking something about you, so you could realize you could have more data about who you are, what your habits are. So after that, I think the question of Adriana will come. And it's not a starting point. It's a point that you arrive when you are more involved in this movement. And I think it's not something geek-related or just for some people that are crazy in some ways or are more aware of everyone else. I think everyone can use them for different purposes because, as I told you, I started to use Fitbit because I wanted to work more, to be more active, not to lose weight. But other people could use Fitbit also to make a correlation with mood or allergies or other activities that you can track on the website. So I think everyone can have a reason to use them.
Adriana, when you said avant-garde, you had a glimpse. I saw a glimpse in your eyes. So what was it?
Everybody can start tracking, but not everybody can actually mine the data and learn from it. Because all you have is Fitbit's pretty primitive visualizations. And then you have, how do you do that? You can do it visually, maybe, if you take, that peak on a trough from the chart and then you compare it with some other data inputs. You have to invest a lot of effort, and you still can get it wrong because you don't have the right input, you're not doing. This is called the visual analysis, the 80-20. What about things like machine learning, where you have ways of finding things about your data and your patterns that could unearth things that previously couldn't imagine? To me, that's the future of QS. Now, that's not exactly quantifying yourself. That's using the data to understand something about yourself. So quantified self, in a way, is a bit of a misnomer. But in the early days, it was absolutely right. It was about being able to gather data. Now, I think it's about, well, fine, we can get that data, you're right, it's easy, but how do we analyze it? So I think there is the battlefront in 3 areas, and I call it battlefront because I think the evolution is towards one platform providing everything, which is the natural web model, unfortunately, or unnatural web model, shall I say. So the front is in 3 parts. One is, how do we get the data sets? How do we collect them, and how do we get them out from wherever they're being collected? The second front is, where do we keep that data? And actually, we will have that talk next, I suppose. How do we store it? How do we keep it private, secure, and alive? It's not just sitting on our desktop. It's actually live, breathing data for us. And the third one, which is the most interesting one, I think, is how do we use that data? How do we analyze it? How do we mine it? And all 3 fronts are being currently provided by, everybody tries to do all 3 not very well. So I think I'd love to see sort of 1,000 flowers bloom on each of those fronts, and then we can pick and choose and arrange things around ourselves. That's the dream. And then it will become far more than quantified self. It will really be like a new kind of literacy. I call it data literacy, which is probably also a bit of a misnomer because it's something that empowers you as an individual.
Marco, is there something you want to add to what we have been hearing since now?
No, I was thinking, I'm not so sure I want to quantify myself. Okay, thank you. 9 minutes. Because...
just for him or for the...
No, for everybody. In general, I think if I start to track myself, I can't resist to the temptation to hack all the measurement system. So in the same way that I did with the balance, when I hack because I cannot tolerate to have the balance tweeting my weight every day and say, funky surfer today got this weight. And because the question is the vision I have of myself and what the data are saying. So maybe what the data could reveal the truth about me. And I'm not sure I want to face the truth. So
that's fabulous. That means you don't want to change anything. But if you do want to change something about yourself, then it is a way of doing it. But totally, good for you. I wish I could say that
I'm
about
arrogant,
myself.
you know.
If you,
No, but
if you
it-
are not ready to face the truth,
Yeah.
don't get your data.
Yes.
You have to be motivated to do it.
Yeah,
So if you're not
absolutely.
motivated, you could use every kind of tracker tool
It's
and
a
you will
job.
not change
Yeah.
anything.
There is an interesting point I used to, if for people who can't understand what quantified self, why would anyone do that and how it actually works, there are these rather disturbing programs in the UK on TV about helping people who eat extremely dysfunctionally or are very, very fat. And they take them and they have a team of nutritionists, psychologists, and doctors and everything. And they sort of, by the end of it, they see the light and eat healthily. But the first thing they do is they take them to a room where on the table or some other visual display is all the food they eat, let's say, in a week. And that person is horrified. It is the first shock they get. So somebody eats only crisps and chocolate. I'm not kidding, there are people like that. And when they are shown the hard fact of what it is that they consume, they go into this shock. And then that's the first motivation. It's not enough, I must say. It's not enough. The second motivation is taking them to the doctor and showing them what it is doing to their body. But it is holding mirror to yourself, which makes it harder to pretend and rationalize things you often do. And that's the first step for changing anything. If you don't want to change, don't do it.
Don't do it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Or act the word.
Oh, and quantified self still leaves plenty of ambiguity and philosophical, space for self and identity.
Yeah.
We have 8 minutes more. 8 or 7, Sergio? 6. I said knowledge is power. Is there someone who wants to know something? Are there questions? One there. She's coming, she's running.
Michael.
Seconds are going away.
California. Ma ce l'hai Fitbit? Perché...
Okay, thank you. That would be a very quick question. Last year at State of the Net, we all were concerned about public open data protection. And a lot of discussion came out, and some
Michael,
of them...
would you mind to
Okay.
stand up because
Sorry.
they can see you in the...
Okay. The personal data protection, I think it's a more even important issue. So from this panel, which are the elements that governments should specifically take care of, and before that, which behaviors users should deploy in order to start a self-protection? Thanks.
It's going to answer.
Good question.
Thank you for this question.
Yeah.
I always say it like this.
It's a tricky one because I think I come from a school of thought where I think the government has really little role to play when it comes to the internet and the web, but that's not the view shared by most or a lot of people. I would say that what I'm trying to explain to people is if we have capabilities at individual level, we don't need somebody to provide and protect. If you have tools to do that, and yes, everybody tells me, well, most people this, most people that. If you think about email, 30 years ago, only geeks had email. Nowadays, everyone has email. It's one of those pervasive technologies that nobody even thinks about, saying, well, but most people couldn't. Why would most people want immediate communication? What's wrong with letters? What's wrong with phone? So that's not directly answering the question, because I'm trying to explain why I don't see the role of government in this space. Data protection, if somebody abuses my data and commits a criminal act against me, there are laws for that. So maybe they should be adjusted to include the properties and assets that include data. But that's a very different proposition from saying government should regulate or should protect somehow.
Thank you. Other questions?
Simpaticissimo Toriero.
For Marco Zamperini.
Grazie caro. Just a comment, not a question. In a future where every object tries to talk with me and offer me data, would be maybe just a nightmare. I would like I would like my scale to talk with my fridge directly, not with me. I want these things to talk by themselves and don't bother me with my attention. The scale weights me. If I'm too fat, the fridge doesn't open automatically. Okay.
You can set that.
This happened to me every day, so I know the problem. But I think the point is we have to be aware of the fact that we are producing a so huge amount of data, everybody of us, also when we don't know. So let me think positive, and so think how we can take advantage of this huge production of information to live a better life. I think that's the point. Because these things are happening anyway. So we have a smartphone, we have a sensor everywhere, in our car, in our home. So what if we became able to use this information to live a better life? I think this is the point.
I think that's pretty much the crux of it. It's we live in data, we're steeped in data, we produce data, there is data about us. I'd rather have some kind of say over that and actually take the data back under my control than have other people do very bad guesses about who I am and what I do and then use it to influence me. That will happen anyway, but I'd like to have the option of doing it myself, not to myself.
In 2008, Tim O'Reilly told me that in the near future we were going to put a lot of data on the internet, and the most part of them wouldn't been put on the internet through a keyboard. So that was the great switch we were going to face, and it is right now. So we got to figure out what to do with this data, how to store them, and how to make them change us, and use them to change, to improve, and to be what we like to be. So knowledge is power. Know more about yourself through measuring, and let's try to figure out what to do in the future with this measuring. Thank you for my guests. Thank you to my guests. Thank you to you for attending us.